beautiful Chorus Entertainment building in downtown Toronto. Welcome once again to the Legal Briefs Network. I'm Lauren Honickman, along, of course, with Joe Neuberger.
Hey, Lauren.
Hi, Joe. Well,
great topic for today.
Oh, boy. I've talked about this a lot. I know you have as well. And now judges are talking about it all the time. Mandatory minimums. Another judge here in the jurisdiction, GTA, striking
very respected,
down.
very tough judge. This is a highly respected, very capable, tough judge. This is not one who's defense-oriented at all. But he struck down mandatory minimums on sentencing for marijuana grow ops.
Right.
And I think this was about 1,100 pot plants and was looking at a minimum sentence of, what was it, 2 years?
Or 2 or 3 years.
Minimum of 2 years.
Right.
And an extra year for endangering public safety.
Right.
And not because it would have been cruel and unusual punishment for her to serve this time. Actually, her lawyers argued that wouldn't necessarily be the case, but it could disproportionately affect other people accused of similar offenses and coming for sentence. And the justice was quite happy to strike this down, like we've seen in gun cases and other marijuana cases, one of them in the Peel region, which was done. Very interesting.
Supreme Court of Canada did that as well back in April. So let's go back and talk about when the Harper government was in power, tough on crime, omnibus bill. They said at the time, we got to do mandatory minimums because too many people are getting away with things. That was the idea behind it.
Mandatory minimums across the board. You're seeing coming out for marijuana cases, for gun cases, and in child-related offense cases. And we've seen now a clear signal from the Supreme Court of Canada. It's ripe to strike down. Bring the constitutional applications, strike down these mandatory minimums.
But let's talk about why they're striking it down. They're striking it down, Joe, because to use the vernacular, they're saying if you get a mandatory minimum, you got the net. The net's out there, and it's capturing everyone who shouldn't be captured, as in this case that we're talking about today, some 41-year-old woman who was growing it for the first time or whatever, and they're saying, no, wait a minute. She's not the worst type of offender. Her blameworthiness isn't as bad as the guy on the street who's trafficking drugs.
Maybe. I mean, what it is sentencing is an individualized process. We've heard this over and over. The criminal code has sections that tells us about all the things we have to look at in order to make a proper assessment of what somebody should be sentenced to. So it's an individualized process. Mandatory minimums are across the board. It does not recognize individualized issues that may be at the crux of why somebody committed an offense, certain steps for rehabilitation that they've taken, which should lessen the severity where they've mitigated the sentence. None of that can be considered. This is an American-style process of sentencing where we have higher rates of incarceration. It's unfair, and you know what? It robs our judges of independence, and that's something we need to cling on to.
Joe, can you hear the sound? There's people watching us right now, Joe, just heard what you said.
I know.
And they're picking up their pen, and they are throwing it at the screen going, there you go again. There's Neuberger again. At least we had these mandatory minimums. At least we were putting people in jail.
Yeah, and thank God that they're not the ones who write legislation or the ones who are making these decisions, because we do not make decisions in the court system based on popularity.
When we look to our friends south of the border, everybody will say, oh, thank God for the Canadian justice system, except when it comes to sentencing. And then they'll go, oh, if only we had their system.
But they'll say that so long as it's not themselves, a member of their family, or a close friend. When it hits home, they're like, how can this happen? Oh my God. How can it happen? And justice isn't supposed to be by popularity. That's why, thank God, we don't have elected judges. I think this is an important trend. We don't have a soft-touch Supreme Court. I mean, by no means is our Supreme Court one of the more left-leaning benches I've ever seen. This is a very tough Supreme Court, but they are going in the right direction, and I think more mandatory minimums are going to fall now.
They're going to fall. Dominoes. Here we go.
One after another. I agree.
We'll talk about it on future episodes. All right. Future episodes. Keep it right here on the Legal Brief Network, and we'll see you then.